Welcome to part 3 of the series on Revoice Pro 3.3. In the previous video, I looked at how to manually correct the pitch and timing of lead vocals. Today I will be applying the APT process to doubled tracks and vocal harmonies. A quick reminder, APT stands for Audio Performance Transfer. This process basically transfers the pitch, level and time values of one audio file, called the guide track, to another audio file called the dub track. The APT process was originally included in Synchro Arts Vocaline software, which has been used in the film industry for many years for automated dialogue replacement. However, the original APT process did not include the transfer of pitch information. With Revoice Pro, the APT process includes pitch transfer, so it makes it very useful in music production for the sort of tasks we will be tackling today. So let's have a quick listen to the section of the song we will be working on. At the top we have the lead vocal. This is muted because I am actually playing the lead vocal from Revoice Pro through the monitor plugin. Then we have a couple of doubled vocal tracks and some harmonies. These are the main processes I want to apply to these tracks. Pitch transfer from the lead vocal to the double vocal tracks, pitch transfer from the first harmony to the second harmony, and time alignment transfer from the lead vocal to all double vocals and harmonies. There are a few ways to approach this depending on your particular workflow. You could certainly achieve the desired results by using the Quick APT plugin. However, this plugin is limited to working with one guide and one dub track at any given time, so it might take a bit longer. Instead, I am going to use the Link plugin to export and import the tracks, and the APT and multi-track processing options inside Revoice to transfer the audio properties from one guide to several dub tracks. If you are interested in the Quick APT plugin, I touched on it in part 1 of this video series. So I am going to start with the pitch transfer from the lead vocal to the two double vocal tracks. Now that I have imported and renamed the tracks, I can open the APT process window by right-clicking on the process control track and choosing New APT, or by pressing B. If I wanted to apply the APT process to the whole length of the double track in one go, I would choose Selected Audio. However, Synchro Arts recommends working on relatively short sections of a minute or less, to minimize errors and save in processing waiting times. To do this, I need to create a new playback range by clicking and dragging the mouse in the top bar. As soon as I do this, notice how the initial input start and end menu changes from selected audio to selected playback range. Next, we have a choice of 4 factory presets, each one made for a different purpose. So for example, the tight timing only would be most suited for automated dialogue replacement in film post-production. The gaps in dub, slightly loose time pitch, is an interesting one. This is a good option when the double vocal track only sings parts of what the lead vocal sings, which means that there are gaps between phrases. This is the case in one of our double tracks, as you can clearly see by looking at the waveforms. So applying this preset would prevent Revoice from wrongly analyzing, placing, or overstretching the audio. However, in this particular case, I have chosen to process a portion of the file with the playback range, so there is no need to choose this preset for the moment. The other 2 presets are suitable for vocal treatment when the lead and the double track sing the same part in the same register. So I am going to load the vocal slightly loose time and pitch, as I would like to transfer both pitch and timing information from the lead to the double tracks. Finally, we need to choose the input and output tracks. So in our case, the lead vocal is going to be the guide track, and the double track would be our dub track, and any empty track would be the output track. If we just had one dub track, I would press New Process Now, and a corrected copy of the dub track would appear in one of the output tracks. However, we have a second double track that also needs processing. I could run the APT process twice, but instead I am going to make use of the multi-track option to process both double tracks at the same time. To do this, first we need to create as many new tracks as the number of tracks we are processing. In this case we are processing 2 tracks, so I create 2 new tracks and set the number of processes to 2. I need to select the first of the dub tracks in the menu, and in the output drop-down menu I need to select the track that will receive the first of the multiple APT outputs. You can leave the dub track increment with the number 1 as long as the dub tracks are placed one after another. And if I click the Fix Offset box, Revoice will in this case send the output 2 tracks below the corresponding dub track. So for example from 2 to 4, 3 to 5, and so on. There are other ways you can set up the multi-track processing, but let's use this way for the sake of simplicity. We can press the spacebar to render and start the playback. A quick note on rendering, I usually have the background render mode set in the preferences menu, so that rendering happens automatically regardless of pressing the spacebar. So let's have a listen. There are several key shortcuts to make the auditioning easier, so I will be using these to have a listen to the audio tracks in different combinations. I am also going to create 2 different groups of tracks, one for each APT process.
Le peuple gagnera ce jeu, nous aurons une nouvelle chance pour récupérer la dignité, luttons contre tous eux. Le peuple gagnera. Le peuple gagnera. Le peuple gagnera. Le peuple gagnera. Ce jeu, nous aurons une nouvelle chance pour récupérer la dignité, luttons contre eux.
If I solo the first output track, it sounds pretty good, although there are some noticeable audio artifacts, especially at the end.
Nous aurons une nouvelle chance pour récupérer la dignité, luttons contre tous eux.
In most cases, the audio artifacts are produced by differences between the guide and the dub track, for example breaths, different words, or big pitch jumps, presenting one track but not the other. A point I would like to make is that these double tracks and harmonies are not meant to be very tight to begin with, and in fact some of the words have purposefully been left out or otherwise sung in a different way. In any case, they provide a good example of the things you can do with the APT process. In this particular case, at the end of the verse, the distribution of notes across syllables in the guide track is different from those in the dub tracks. To fix this issue, I can create a protected area in the dub track so that there is no transfer in that part and thus no artifacts. To do this, select the relevant APT process, then make sure display energy is on in the APT control panel, and right-click on the dub track and choose Add Protected Area, or choose Edit Energy if Add Protected Area is not available. Choose between protecting pitch, time, or both. I am going to choose both in this case. Because I have background render mode on, as soon as I introduce the protected area, the audio is modified accordingly. As you can hear, now the last phrase in the output track hasn't been processed and is the same as in the dub track.
Entre 12. Entre 12.
The second dub track has also several issues.
Le pellequin ira. Ce jeu, nous aurons une nouvelle chance pour récupérer.
There are a few breaths in the dub track that are not present in the guide track and vice versa.
Le chant. Le chant. Le chant. La chance pour récupérer.
So I should place some protected areas in those parts. There is also a big pitch jump in the guide that is not present in the dub track, and when this gets transferred, it generates some artifacts.
Le chant. Le chant. La chance. La chance.
So again, I could place another protected area in the dub track or try to move the pitch blocks. I also find that this second double track has got more artifacts, possibly because it was recorded by a different singer that performs the song slightly differently, so the transfer seems less transparent. Generally speaking, I would say that the APT process seems to work better when the voice is the same in both tracks and/or when the performances are very similar. You will also notice that after applying the APT process, there's a new green area underneath the waveform. This green rectangle is a process control block, which gives a visual indication of the processing start and end times for each input signal. You can move or resize it, as well as creating multiple process control blocks, each one with different settings. So they provide a variety of processing and workflow options. Now let's have a look at the harmony tracks. We have 3 harmony tracks in different parts of the song. One of them is a harmony of the corrected double track we just processed.
Le pellequin ira. Ce jeu, nous aurons une nouvelle.
And there is another pair of vocal harmonies on an earlier verse. So let's deal with the single harmony first. Here we have a vocal part that has different notes from the lead, but similar timing. I am assuming that it does not need pitch correction, but if it did, now it might be a good time to do it. Now I am going to run an APT process to tighten just the timing of the harmony. With the lead vocal as the guide track, the harmony as the dub track, and the newly created track as the output. I am going to choose the tight timing only preset. I have also added some protected areas in some of the breaths.
Le chance pour récupérer la dignité, luttant contre tout jeu. Le peuple gagnera. Ce jeu, nous aurons une nouvelle. Le chance pour récupérer la dignité, luttant contre.
As we can hear, this preset is too tight as it is meant for dialogue replacement. So I will change some of the APT settings in a minute. Also notice that at the end of the verse, The harmony ends earlier than the lead vocal, and this generates an unnatural sounding stretched bit of audio. I could add a protected area to the dub track, but another possibility would be to drag back the process block in the guide track so that it leaves out the last word of the verse. Now I am going to open the process control panel for this particular APT. The APT control panel is divided in 3 sections: the preset control settings, the automatic feature transfer controls, and the display and edit controls. In the automatic feature transfer controls, you can turn on or off and modify the analysis and transfer of timing, pitch, and level parameters. So I can modify the tolerance, the alignment flexibility, and the maximum shift slider to make the timing transfer a bit looser or tighter. By the way, any changes I make to these settings will be immediately applied to the output track. The max shift slider is an interesting one, as you can define the maximum time shift of the dub audio from its original position. This can be useful when we have a dub track that has gaps between phrases that do not appear in the guide track, as it happened with our lead vocal and one of the double tracks earlier. In the pitch section, we have options to define the tightness, tolerance, the transfer strength, the offset of the pitch correction, and some parameters relating to the algorithm. We can also choose the mode of pitch correction, and we can also change the frequency limits of pitch analysis. For example, this would be very useful when processing instruments that have a frequency range beyond the average human voice range. And it can also be useful to bracket or ignore octave jumps in pitch traces that happen in the guide track, but you don't want to transfer to the dub track. Next, in the level section, we have similar controls for tightness, and then average, level, and attack and decay settings. Finally, we have several options for display and editing behavior. We can turn on and off the display of information for time and pitch, also energy profile for the guide and the dub, and level profile and blocks for manual editing. Furthermore, we can automate some of the pitch settings in the timeline of a dub track. To do this, we need to tick the pitch display box, then right-click on the dub track, choose the APT process in the drop-down menu, and you will see the automation options for that track. We can add automation points by clicking and delete them by selecting Modified Values, Delete Selected Values. Now that I have modified some of the settings, I can then save the preset so that it is available in the new process window. You can also save your preset as the user default preset so that it automatically loads by default if no other preset is chosen. You can have many different settings saved under different letters. This is a great tool, as sometimes getting the desired results can involve a bit of trial and error, and you can compare many different versions very quickly.
Le chante pour récupérer la dignité, luttons contre eux.
The looser settings sound more natural, as would be expected. Now let's have a look at the other two harmony tracks. They share the timing with the lead vocal, but they are singing the part with different notes. The method would be very similar to the one we have already described, so I won't get into details here. Once we have all the tracks corrected to our taste, we can then use the Link plugin to import them back to Pro Tools. We can import them to new tracks or substitute the existing ones, and that would be job done. Today we have looked at the audio performance transfer inside Revoice Pro 3.3 in the context of vocal production. Ideally, you should start with pretty good audio material to make the most of the APT process. Otherwise, you might need to spend some time using manual correction before you can use the automated features. You certainly need attention to detail to spot things like breaths and other performance features that could get in the way of quick and accurate results. My highlights would include the accuracy and versatility of the APT process itself, which can be applied to all or just specific sound parameters like time or pitch. I also really like the multi-track processing feature, which can save you lots of time when working with lots of stacked tracks like harmonies, etc. All in all, it is a very clever bit of technology, almost like magic. I say almost because, as it often happens, the end results will depend to a large extent on what you feed to the software in the first place. This is all from me today. In the next video, I will be looking at the doubler process in Revoice Pro 3.3. See you next time.